Ratios for getting into medical school specialties in the UK are at an all-time high. I'm hearing in some places it's as high as 40-1. But what if I told you I had a playbook that could help you make the most of your interview and maximize your skills and experiences with some cheat codes, some tips and some tricks to make sure you perform well at interview? Well, stick with me in this video because I'll be taking you through, and if you stay to the end, there are some advanced techniques for if you've completed your preparation, and there are some tips for how to prepare for an interview. So I'm just going to dive straight in. So mindset is everything. When it comes to interviews, confidence is key. The way you give yourself confidence is by preparing well for the interview, and you want to be in the right frame of mind. And in order to be in the right frame of mind, you need to put away worry. Forget about worry. It's a waste of energy. All the energy you're using to worry, you could use to practice, or you could use to upskill yourself when it comes to interviews. So what you want to be doing when you're practicing, or we're thinking, let me put it this way, the goal of practicing is to calm your nerves, because nerves are what are your enemy when it comes to interviews. So getting worked up into getting into a panic, which most medics like to do, is just a waste of time. And another way you do that is by ruthlessly detaching yourself from the outcome. You got to think about it like, I'm going for this interview, and if this is meant for me, it will be for me. And if it's not meant for me, then it's a redirection. It is not a rejection. It's just a redirection to where you need to be. So detach yourself from the outcome so that you don't work yourself up into a frenzy. Okay, so that's the mindset you want to go into. Then you actually tackling the interview. The way I see it is that all interviews boil down to two things. One, they need to like you. And two, you need to present information in a way that they can give you the marks so that they can hire you. So what you want to do is you want to make the job as easy as possible for the interviewer, and you don't want to make it difficult for them. You don't want to have bits of information hidden in your answer. It needs to be bold, it needs to be powerful, and it needs to come straight out of the gate. So, it is an interview, if you put it simply, is your presentation of knowledge. Okay, we all have knowledge, otherwise we wouldn't be in the interview. Okay, but it's how you present that knowledge, and it's how you present in a way that makes you look knowledgeable, but also, like I said, they need to tick the boxes. So confidence, and where does confidence come from? Preparation. Okay, you need to be confident, but you also need to be professional. So your tone, your body language, the way you pace your answers, the way you give your answers needs to come across as professional and confident. And I'm going to take you how you do that by answering questions in a way that's confident. Now, my number one tip would be to just imagine you are speaking to your friend. Okay, your friend in your home, your friend over the internet, whatever. The conversational style is the way you want to think about things. If you can get to the level where you're just conversing, then you've done really well. Okay, and that allows you to speak naturally whilst staying structured. It also helps you to build rapport, because when you have robotic answers, you don't feel connected to the person. You don't want to listen to a robotic answer. Okay, and then it also helps you to manage your nerves. But like I said, presentation of knowledge. So what you want to be doing is you want to be selling yourself, but at the same time, we are in Britain, we are in the UK, and just the way we do things here is slightly different to elsewhere. And you want to sell yourself, but you want to do it in an understated sort of way. And I'll talk you through that through here. So the law of threes, and I think, so I've said this many times. When you're giving an answer, if possible, you want to give 3 elements to that answer, no more than 3, because that's just the way the brain works. And it makes you just look confident. It makes you look professional. So if I said to you, for example, give me, what do you think makes a good surgeon? Your answer could be, there are 3 main things that make a good surgeon. 1 is this, 2 is that, and 3 is that. And then you go into your answer and you just look slick when you do that. Just give 3. It also helps you populate in your mind. Okay, there's 3 things I need to fill in my mind. So when you're working on your answers for things, because you'll be obviously working on the answers before the interview, you want to give 3. But even if you're put on the spot and there's a question that you just haven't thought about, you want to try and give 3 three answers. Okay, so we're thinking the law of threes. We're thinking in threes. Then, when it comes to your answer, there's three things that you want to communicate. You want to communicate to the interviewer that you're competent, that you're committed, and that you're compatible with the job. Okay, so your competence will be demonstrated through historical things, so what you've done before. Your commitment, again, through historical things, and your compatibility will be demonstrated through your personality within the interview. Okay, and then you want to have a big three. You want to have a big three things in your mind that you want to get across in the interview. So let's just say you've got three, maybe you've got a big project, and maybe you've got a publication, and then maybe you've got something that's unique for yourself. Like, I don't know, maybe you won a prize. Just for an example, those are the three things you want to communicate. What you want to do is you want to remember that those big three things need to be communicated during this interview, and you need to weave it into your answer somehow if they don't ask you about it directly. So, for example, if they say, tell me about your CV, or if they say, tell me why you want to go into public health, then that is your opportunity. That is your opportunity to say, oh, I've done this project on public health and I really enjoy XYZ, and I'm passionate, and that's why I won a prize. And after winning the prize, that led me to start a project, and I got published within public health. And so what I'm saying is you want to weave your big three into your answers. Now, when you're practicing, practice like you're speaking to a friend. It makes it easier. Don't get yourself worked up if you're trying to get the right answer or trying to come up with, it's not an examination. It is a conversation. Okay. So practice like you're speaking to a friend. And then the next tip is that you want to build your responses. So even if your answer, let me give an example. So if the question is, tell us about a time that you have demonstrated leadership and let's say, tell me about a time where you've demonstrated teaching. You could jump in and say, oh, I have a PG cert in medical education and I taught on the wards, and so on and so forth. But that's not an advanced answer. That's a basic answer. An advanced answer would build. It would start with a base, like think about a pyramid, the base of a pyramid, and would say, oh, whilst I was at medical school, I've always been interested in teaching. And when I graduated, I started to participate in bedside teaching for medical students, and from there I decided, or I realized that I needed to be more structured, and so started after work clubs for medical students which was highly attended, and through that I decided to formalize my teaching skills by getting a PG cert in medical education. And so even though you've arrived at the same outcome of a PG cert in medical education, you've built up your response from the basic that everyone else would have. Everyone else is probably going to say, yeah, I did bedside teaching, or everyone else is going to say, I did mock OSCEs or whatever. You've built it up, and then you've crescendoed at the pinnacle, rather than just throwing out, yeah, I have a PG cert medical. If you've liked this video, you can subscribe, join my school community, where I offer other free resources for careers, for doctors, for medical students, and for people who want to have a portfolio career. Education. Also, it allows you to tell a story, and the way human brains work is that we always follow a story. If there's no story to follow, it's like abstract information. If I said peanuts, rabbits, carrots, that makes no sense to you. But if I say the rabbit really enjoyed eating carrots but was allergic to peanuts, all of a sudden you can follow and you can remember rabbit, carrot, peanut. But if I just threw rabbit, carrot, peanut, you wouldn't remember. It's just the way the human brain works. Storytelling is everything in interviews. And so if you have the time, try and weave things into a story. Even if you're practicing, teaching, research, you want to weave it into some sort of story. Okay. And then the overall goal is to link the answers back to yourself. Every single question has to be linked back to yourself. Even if they're asking a question that's seemingly not related to you, you want to link it back to yourself. Okay. If they're asking about how to deal with an ethical issue, you want to say, in my experience. You want to say, if I were in that situation. You want to say, when I was in that situation, just demonstrating that you have, like we said up here, the competence, the commitment, the compatibility. Okay, so the way to answer your and structure your answers using the STAR method: situation, task, action, result, reflection. Anytime you're asked to describe the story or you're telling a story, give me a situation, give me an example. You want to start with situation, the task, the action, the result, and reflection. And having that in your mind allows you to have a framework that you can fall back on even under high stress. Okay. And then the SPICE framework, this is for answering ethical questions such as: you see your colleague who is drunk at work. What do you do? First, you seek information. Then you want to prioritize patient safety, the impact of them being drunk, evidence, and then a summary. Okay. We should all know the SPICE framework or the STAR network, STAR method. You can easily look it up, but that's what you want to use. And this is putting it into action. So if they ask you a first person question, tell me about a time you handled conflict, you want to use the STAR method. Okay. But if it's situational, you want to use the SPICE method, but making it personal to yourself. For example, I don't know, your colleague has been a racist to somebody else. Somebody has said that they've been racist to somebody else on the ward. Okay, what would you do? First, you would seek information. Then you would make sure that they're not harming any patients. Then you'd assess the impact, evidence, and summary, and so on and so forth. And like I said, it's all about storytelling and making it personal. So in order to make that personal, you would say something along the lines of, in my experience, or were I in that situation, or my personal view is, or you would say, very tricky situation, difficult to handle. But what I would like to do is to seek information first. So you're bringing it back to yourself. Okay. And then, you want to, like I said, you want to take it personally. You want to show your benefits. You want to show off your benefits. And a good way to do that, especially in the British setting, is to say, with your answers and when you're developing your answers, to use these phrases: as a result. So having done, because of, in my experience, I think what sets me apart. So if I was to say, I was doing bedside teaching, and as a result, I've developed amazing communication skills. Having done structured lectures, I now, when I now have I now participate in structured teaching because I completed my PG cert. I now deliver teaching sessions within my deanery. Okay, in my experience of teaching XYZ, I think what sets me apart is my experience in teaching and having a PG cert. Do you get what I mean? So you're quote unquote boasting, but not doing it in a way that causes friction. Okay. So these are some statements. So when you're building up your answers, as a result of having done, so whenever you're giving an answer to demonstrate your experience, you would want to end with as a result or start with having done, so that you can link your personal experience to the job description. Okay. And then you advance techniques. And this is once you've mastered everything else, you want to use mirroring language. So within the job description, there will be keywords, and that's what the mark sheet is. You want to rehearse this job description. You want to go through the job description and tick off all the points when you're making your answers for teaching, for research, for public health, for surgery, commitment to specialty. And you want to use some of those keywords in your answers. So if it says, that you have to demonstrate leadership in a clinical setting, then in one of your answers, you within your story, you want to say, and having done that, I have developed leadership skills within the clinical setting. Okay. Or, I think what sets me apart is the exposure to leadership in clinical settings. I was the lead for XYZ. As a result of being the most senior registrar, or as a result of being the only SHO who was allowed to see patients on my own, I have demonstrated leadership. Whatever. My point is, you want to be mirroring the language within the job description. Okay. And then, if you don't know the answer to something, if you do run into trouble, pause, repeat the question back, and then say, my understanding of XYZ is, and that way you're not really committing, but you're showing that you can think through something. And if they can always ask you or probe more if they want more from you from that. Okay, so you want to understand the points. It's a points-based scoring system. That's the bottom line. You can be as fantastic as you want to be, but you've got to score those points on that sheet. And usually that is from the job description or from, online from the mark scoring sheet. You should be able to find whichever job you're applying for, whether that's, public health, ONG, you should be able to find it online. Okay. And you back every single point you make up with evidence, having done, as a result of, because of, and then, you want to use a skillful boasting. Like I said, I think what sets me apart is XYZ. I think the difference between or from that experience that other people didn't get, this is what I have achieved, And then my last tip is, you show, you don't tell, rather than, saying, I reflect. Don't say I reflect on things. Say you give an example of when you've reflected. So you would say, this situation happened and I reflected on it and this is the outcome, rather than saying I reflect, because I reflect is just telling them that you reflect. You're not showing any, you're not demonstrating any reflection. So you want to show them the skills that you have rather than telling them. Sorry, another last tip is that you should give your opinion of the statement or the question. So, for example, and especially if it's a tricky question, like someone asked me a tricky question once in an interview, and I said, "Oh, that's a difficult question," but I said that to gather some time. I actually said that so I could get some more time in order to answer and formulate my answer. So you give an opinion of the question that they've given. Oh, that's a tricky question, or oh, what a great question, or that's really making me think here, just to buy yourself some time, but also it makes them feel good that, oh yeah, I did ask a good question. Okay, I hope that helps. If there's anything in particular you want me to go through, happy to go through it in more detail, but that is the quickest way I could get through all of this. If not, I would be here forever. So this is just a simple playbook.